Good morning, everyone. We're going to start getting all the attendees in as they come in. We'll give it about 30 more seconds, and then we'll get started with today's webinar seminar on technology challenges of California agents. Everyone should be logging in and should be seeing our main screen. Well, good. Well, we're going to get started today. So good morning and welcome to today's webinar, Technology Challenges of California Agents. I'm Rob Oates, Chairman of the IIAB-Cal Emerging Leaders Committee. With us today is Ron Berg, Executive Director of the Agents Council for Technology, ACT. ACT is a part of the National Big I Association and provides a forum to address the critical workflow and technology issues facing the independent agency system. Also with us today is Jim Armitage, IIAB-Cal past president and chairman of the ACT committee. For today's webinar, we have muted all of your phones to eliminate the background noise. However, you can ask questions in writing through the right-hand navigation area of GoToMeetings. All of your questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Ron?
Thank you very much. And thanks to those of you who are joining us today on behalf of Jim Armitage and myself. In our discussion today, we'll be talking about and reviewing a number of technology challenges that agents and brokers are facing and will continue to face. So we'll be speaking to some of the aspects like security, passwords and IDs, eSignature, technology agreements that you hold between you as agents and your carriers, workflow efficiencies such as real-time and download, and we'll also share some of our ACT resources that you can leverage to increase your agency's productivity. So you should be seeing at this point my Prezi screen, and Prezi is a more animated, newer form of PowerPoint showing Jim and my pictures and some of our background. If any of you are not seeing the Prezi screen, please send a message using your GoToMeeting control panel so we can get a sense that whether this is working for everyone or not. And as an extension to that, we want this time to be as interactive as we possibly can make it in this format. So we will have a dedicated time for Q&A at the end, as Rob mentioned. Please feel free to submit any questions you have as we go along by, again, typing them into the right-hand navigation area of your GoToMeeting control panel. And again, all your questions, we'll try to address those at the end of the presentation. So I'll take the first section on security. Jim, before I jump into that, did you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay, let's get going then. So let's get started with the subject of security. So you're probably aware that this is a really wide-ranging topic. So we can look at the subject of security and risks and break it down from a couple of aspects. Number one, the security that is needed to be addressed within your agency, and the security between your customer and your agency. But clearly, with all of the acceleration that's going on and the use of new technology within agencies and by consumers and customers, we're facing a lot more security risk and challenges within agencies and brokerages. Just from a mobile standpoint alone, right now there's 240 million mobile phones in the U.S., and as we know, that trend's accelerating. By 2016, it's expected there will be 256 million smartphones and 126 million tablets. So that means that mobile is getting to be the connection platform of choice, right? But what that also means is that clients want to use their mobile devices to connect to your social presence. They want to be able to pull up documents like ID cards, policy documents, billing documents from those platforms. And all of these have their own inherent risks for security and E&O that you need to be aware of and plan for. So not to scare anyone, but to raise the stakes even more, we're seeing more and more evidence of cyber attacks and those threats affecting us everywhere. You think of the Fortune 100 companies that we've all heard about and the breaches that they're experiencing. Target, JP Morgan Chase, Home Depot most recently, even Apple with their iCloud hacks. So clearly the question is, agencies need to have a document and a documented security plan that addresses a number of areas. Some of the questions you want to ask yourself are, as examples, do you know the data breach laws within California and the other states that you deal with? How do you protect yourself from a data breach? Do you know what constitutes a data breach? Do you encrypt your data? Do you have a third-party company perform vulnerability scans or penetration tests on your systems at least once a year? So that's a lot to consider. Those are just examples of the types of things that agents need to be contemplating and putting a strategy in place for. So the good news is there are resources to help agents and brokers. ACT ourselves has a number of agent resources, including an agent's guide to system security, some agency strategies to send and receive personal data securely, and a planning strategy for keeping your agency data secure, and information on other aspects like email encryption and TLS. Now, I didn't want to list all of those on the screen just to keep it more clean, not to overwhelm, but all of you can find all of this at www.iiaba.com/act. Being I stumbled on that, I'll say it again, www.iiaba.com/act. And from that screen, home screen, you can find all of this under the Planning and Security tab. And keep in mind that ACT is a free resource for all independent agents and brokers. So extending what I've shared that we already have in place, we're also re-energizing a work group we have around agency security issues. So what this work group will do, it brings together representatives from carriers, from technology partners, or vendors if you prefer, and agencies and brokerages to address these security and risk issues that are emerging. And then the work group will take those issues and work to update our existing documentation and address some of the new focus areas. And those might be things such as when your client texts you, what does that mean from a security standpoint, and what E&O issues are around that? What are the issues around social interaction, moving contacts from social into your internal systems to bridge toward generating a policy and business. So we'll be focusing on things like that and generating more assistance for you as agents from that. So I know that I've discussed a lot here, and it's a lot for you to think about. Again, there are resources for you on that, and you can reach out and contact me through ACT and utilize the ACT website. So Jim, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you to discuss some of the password challenges.
Super. I appreciate that very much. Our second challenge that we really wanted to talk about today was the whole idea of passwords. We deal with hundreds of passwords a day, and you know, you walk around your office, and even maybe at your desk, you see Post-it notes which have passwords on them. There's lists under, you know, desk calendars, and you know, you would think that the kind of the idea of ease of doing business would be really what generates the need for more ease of signing in to all of the different websites that we need to sign into each day. But it's really, I think, a security issue. We really are not very secure because you've got all these, you know, passwords all over. So what's happened is that we have worked to develop what we call single sign-on. That's the SSO. And many of the agency management vendors have been working very, very hard to develop a ability for an individual to come in and sign on to their desktop, and then that would basically allow them the ability to access all of the different websites that they need to access to do their job during the day. And it really is something that we've really got to do from a security standpoint. And also, you know, we all have a certain amount of turnover in our agencies, and it's a nightmare, you know, basically flipping off the switch and access for someone that leaves, where with a single sign-on concept, you basically turn it off one place and it turns it off everywhere. So the industry has worked very hard the last probably 4 years in an organization that was called the ID Federation, which has ultimately come up with a website that is called Sign On Once, and we have a little bit of a screenshot down in the right-hand corner, and you've got a link, and it gives you a whole lot of information on this whole concept and the ability for agents and brokers and to access vendors, carriers with one sign-in. So, Ron, did you want to go on to the next section?
Absolutely, Jim. We'll talk about another, not just challenge, but a huge opportunity in the industry, and that's around eSignature. And I'm sure each of you have not only heard about it in our industry, but are pretty much expecting it in the methods that you do business with. We're seeing a lot of traction. So from a legal standpoint, every state and the federal government has accepted e-signatures. We know that. From a security standpoint, we also know that it's a far superior method of accepting signatures in comparison to the traditional wet signature method. One of the great aspects about e-signature is that it drastically improves customer service, and it provides really a fast way for customers to interact that they prefer. It meets them in the medium that they prefer with technology advancement. So a positive benefit of this, or outgrowth, is that it saves your agency precious time. Case studies are showing that e-signatures can save around $10 per transaction with the whole cycle that the transaction needs to take, and it also, obviously, it offsets the paper-related expenses. And some agencies and carriers have seen productivity increases of over 60% when using e-signature over wet signatures. And then, you know, just as importantly as any of it, agents and brokers are seeing significant reductions in the number of document errors. And that makes everybody happy when there are no issues that can be brought to the fore. So most carriers now accept e-signatures, and in fact, working with the Accord User Group Information Exchange, that's an acronym called AUGI, we have yet to find a carrier that does not accept e-signatures. So then the issue from there becomes clarity for agents and brokers on what's available. So on the screen, I'm showing some resources for you. Last month in ACT, we created and communicated a 3-part series on e-signatures. We focused on clarity around what's available for agents and brokers, what vendor implementations there are, and that covers both individual vendors like DocuSign and AssureSign and all these other signs that are out there, as well as the management system integrations that are being implemented with those vendors. And finally, we had another part on what carriers are and can be doing with e-signature. So you can see from the resources that we have that available from the ACT website that I had overviewed before. Also, I mentioned AUGI, the Accord User Group Information Exchange. They host a community on e-signature that ACT works in combination with to put together clarity resources, speaking points, and other documentation to put more background together on eSignature. And then finally, Accord itself, from their website, they partnered with the legal giant Lock Lord to put together some legal guidelines around eSignature. And it's a great document. I believe it's around 14 pages, but it does break down very, very clearly all of the legal properties around eSignature and all of the guidelines for it. Again, the information that we've been talking about so far will be made available to you after today's webinar. So Jim, I will turn it over to you to speak to agency and carrier agreements.
Fantastic, thank you. The bottom line is that if you're not doing eSignature, you really should be doing it, because you know, your customers are either demanding it or will be demanding it in the future.
Absolutely.
Agency and carrier agreements. We've been working as a committee to work on different recommendations that we could make to develop some best practices around the whole idea of agency agreements. Many carriers periodically review their agency agreements, and so what we've tried to develop is a kind of a agents' wish list of recommendations that we feel are in the best interest of agents insofar as their agency and carrier agreements are. And there are just an incredible number of areas that we really have had to address. You know, you have the whole idea of e-signatures. You have these click-through agreements that pop up many of our carriers when our people go on to the website. It pops up a agreement that you have to agree to, not unlike you know, iTunes or you know, a lot of different products and services, downloads of, say, software updates, things like that. And, you know, with a click-through, you know, we have people in our office every day that are agreeing to something that, you know, do they really have the authority to be doing that? Also, you've got single sign-on and the whole ID Federation that I talked about a little bit earlier. You have third-party data. I mean, think about going in and issuing a homeowner's or an auto policy, or even nowadays ops, where you've got reports being generated outside of, you know, your agency. They could be clue reports. They could be MVRs that are being done. It could be data on where the risk is located, earthquake susceptibility, soil types. I mean, it just, and, you know, some carriers are actually doing credit checks on the commercial side. So you have this, you know, whole privacy protection security issue around third-party data. You have telematics. I mean, look at the number of companies that are they want to put, you know, a black box in your car to monitor what you're doing, and you get a discount for the rate. It could be determining how many miles you go, what your driving habits are. You know, Big Brother is looking at you, and there are a handful of carriers that are doing this. And if God forbid you're terminated, you know, you really need access to data, because so much of the data about your customer resides now on the carrier site, and you need to be able to have access to that data for a period of time after, you know, you break your relationship. And then also just, you know, correcting system errors, you know, if something were to happen. So there's a lot of exciting things going on, and we're trying to just make sure that agents' best interest is protected when it comes to what seems like kind of a one-sided agreement. The company puts together an agreement and kind of drops it on the agency owner's desk, and says, you know, sign here. We hopefully can make some suggestions before the agreements are redrawn that will be in the best interests of agents and brokers, make a little bit better playing field for us. Okay. Next slide. We'll talk about efficiencies. Ron, if you wouldn't mind.
Sorry, Jim. A little glitch. Here we go. Efficiencies.
No, that goes back to the front. Oh, well, basically what we were going to be talking about is what we call real-time. Ah, cool. Again, realtime.org is a great website that will give you some insight on real-time. And essentially, you know, real-time can be defined in claims download, commercial lines download, personal download, activities, and notifications. But really, it also can talk, you know, there's a lot of real-time rates in personal lines where when you go to a comparative rater, they're actually providing you with the actual rate so that if you were to then go back in and sign in on the company site, the rate is going to be the same. You've also got quoting on personal lines, pardon me, on commercial lines. You have inquiries, so you could be looking at payment status and, you know, claims updates, you know, things of that nature. And also we have wonderful programs that allow you to kind of reconcile your direct bill. So you get a direct bill statement, and basically it downloads and it matches and updates the system, your system, and that saves just huge amounts of time. Another fun thing, next slide, is you have the ability now to track through the Ivan's group, which actually facilitates the ability to do a lot of these real-time transactions. You can actually go to Ivan's, which it shows their connections via ivansinsurance.com, and request this grid, and it gives you information on what companies you do business with and how much download is taking place, what download by line is available, and it's just a great tool to be able to maximize your ability to take download, whether it's in personal lines or commercial lines. So it's a great tool that I would recommend you avail yourself to.
And I'll just jump off on leverage that statement, Jim. We have heard from a number of agencies that consider themselves very technology forward. They are amazed when they have this grid created how many lines of business that they have available for download that they don't have enabled. Every one of the agencies that we've talked to that has run this has found at least one or two or more lines that they could be downloading that they didn't know they had available. So it's a great tool. Cool. All right. Well, next I'm going to go to just a little bit more on in terms of additional resources for you. We wanted to take some time to let you know that ACT also hosts our own webinars and posts video content to our website to help you, the agents and brokers, with more insight and guidance on your technology strategy. So we've got a number of videos already posted. You can see two shown here on agency perspectives on the future and agency strategies for growth. Both of these were the topics of the previous two IIAB Cal technology webinars we held earlier this summer. And so these two videos you can access either from this Prezi, which we're going to be sending out, as well as from the ACT website. I'm sorry, I had a little hiccup there. We also have a number of pre-recorded webinars, and you can see one listed there. That has to do with recommendations that we made to carriers on distributing electronic policies to agents and customers with different recommendations based on personal lines, small and mid-commercial and large commercial lines. So how those recommendations would change, whether the policy should go directly to the insured if it's small commercial or personal, as an example, or should go to the agent for large commercial and the aspects around that. So we have a number of other webinars that we have available on HIPAA, as an example, measuring social media success, among other things. And also this fall, I can tell you we're going to be creating an updated series of webinars. We're planning on social media market plans. So that'll be coming in the future. And again, all of this can be found at www.iiaba.com/ACT or ACT, and you'll be able to find it in the Webinars tab. So I think that's all we have at this point. Jim, did you have anything else to add before we turn it back to Rob for questions?
No, I'm good to go. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys both, Ron and Jim, for the presentation today. I'd like to now open the webinar up for questions anyone may have. If you haven't already done so, you can please submit them, your questions now. Our first question is on the we've got a huge flux in interest and problems that agencies are facing with cyber liability. Does ACT have some basic tips or steps or templates that could help agencies with some of these processes and setting up to protect their agency and potentially their clients?
So kind of a two-pronged answer there. We have the power of the Big I and our general counsel from that standpoint to help assist the states, the agents, and ACT with direction on that. We call on them quite a bit on that. When it comes to templates around that, that was what I was referring to a little bit earlier when I was talking about security and our agency security issues work group that we're re-enabling. When that group last put out the Agent's Guide to System Security and Strategies to Send and Receive Personal Data Securely, cyber was contemplated, but not in the width and breadth that it should be now with everything going on. So that's one of the aspects that that group is going to be focusing on starting this month. We're just putting a call out for volunteers to re-energize that group. The Big I, under its legal and governance auspices, does have some guidance there. But I think to your point, Rob, there does need to be some clear guidelines put out for that, and that's what we're going to be focusing on.
No, that's great. And I know just from personal experiences, I worked with ACT. You guys have an information security program for independent agencies on the independentagents.com website, the Big I website. That was very useful when we were working on that type of program and gave a great template to follow and working with others to put it together. Our next question is with regards to email and TLS security. And so maybe first of all you could explain what TLS security is, but I know we talked about the deliverance of e-documents and e-signatures and delivering policies via email. Obviously with that comes the security issues, being that there's policy numbers, a driver license, information in the policies. Can you maybe explain how TLS secure emails work and how that could affect retail agency?
Absolutely. And I'll try to keep it in kind of medium detail and not go too far into it. So highest level, TLS stands for Transport Layer Security. So it's this encryption process that's similar to SSL that you've heard of. If you see the HTTPS at the beginning that most internet sites use to encrypt and protect those transmissions. So TLS just creates this tunnel between two email servers that both have TLS active, and that's the key. So recently, within the past few years, ACT has worked to document which carriers have TLS enabled. We have a document there. Granted, that needs to be reviewed again because all the time carriers are looking at TLS. But really, when TLS is in place, the users from both parties, the agent and the carrier in my example, are able to send the email back and forth to each other without doing anything extra to encrypt the email or its attachments. And it doesn't require passwords, but it facilitates that secured transmission of data in between the end users, and in my example, again, agents and carriers.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions out there? I know that obviously this is a very important topic to all of us, security and technology, and so if there's anything else out there that we can answer, as you all know, Ron and Jim will be at InsureFest coming up on October 6th through the 8th, and will be presenting on a panel as well as some other industry professionals to discuss, technology around retail agencies, and then they'll also be there to answer individual questions that any of you may have. So since we have no other questions, I want to thank Ron and Jim for spending time with us today and providing us with their additional insight. As I said, Ron will be a moderator on a panel discussion of experts from Google and Yelp, as well as from the agent and vendor communities on our technology challenges. The panel will take place at this year's InsureFest, November 6th through the 8th, at the Sheraton Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. For more information and to register for InsureFest, please visit www.insurefest.org. That concludes today's webinar. Thank you all for participating.